What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another great edition of Sports Etouffee. I'm your host, Logan Graffy, and on today's show, we're going to get into some potential Saints free agent targets. The Saints finally solidifying their coaching staff on the offensive end, and we're going to briefly touch on the Daytona 500. All that and in between right here on Sports Etouffee. But no more smick smack. Let's hear that theme music. Alrighty. So, first up, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. They finally finished filling Clint Kubiak's offensive coaching staff. The last position of need was a wide receivers coach, and they got themselves a good one. Keith Williams, assistant wide receivers coach from the Baltimore Ravens, and Ravens fans are actually pretty upset that he's leaving. They said that he had a lot to do with the development of Zay Flowers early on, and also he was a long time. He's been a receivers coach, as a private receivers coach, I should say, for a long time, and was the personal coach for, I'm reading it right here, for players like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. And once upon a time, he was at Fresno State from 2009 to 2011 when Derek Carr was there early on in his college days. So there's that tiny bit of connection. He's been at Nichols. He's worked under Curtis Johnson, who's a legendary receivers coach for the New Orleans Saints and the current head coach of the Houston Roughnecks of the UFL. So let's go down this list here of coaches for the New Orleans Saints. You give me just a moment. But all the coaches on paper seem to be A-plus hires. And I know people are going to say, well, Logan, it's on paper. What do you mean that it's A-plus hires? They haven't played a single game yet. And yes, that is true. But you have to look at the staff right here. As I read it, you have now Clint Kubiak as the OC, who's going to be the head coach of the offense. He brings in his guy from Minnesota, who was the quarterback's coach last year for the Chicago Bears, Andrew Janocko, who's on the younger side. He's like 35. Carr's like 33, 34, so close age range. I think that's going to work out very well. You have running backs coach Derek Foster. He was once the running backs coach once upon a time at Iowa for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he was also recently the running backs coach for the Los Angeles Chargers. He worked with Austin Eckler, who's kind of the same type of running back as Alvin Kamara. Works out great. Then you have Keith Williams, who was the assistant wide receivers coach for the Baltimore Ravens, who I just mentioned. Worked with a lot of young receivers like Zay Flowers, and now he's going to get to work with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and other potential guys. Then you have John Benton and Rick Dennison, who's going to be on the offensive line. John Benton was with one of the godfathers of the zone blocking scheme. Want to say Coach Mills. Can't remember his first name, but Coach Mills. While Gary Kubiak was installing it, Rick Dennison, who many know has some controversy to him, but he's one of the best offensive line coaches out there. He's also going to be the run game coordinator. Clancy Barone is the only coach from last year that's still on staff. Tight ends coach, him and Clint Kubiak worked together once upon a time as well. The two best hires I like the most is John Benton and Rick Dennison. You're going to get two of the guys that will help to kind of start the zone blocking scheme that you see people like the 49ers, the Dolphins, and all these read option zone read teams run. And the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that is the way that offenses are playing now in the NFL. There's that zone blocking scheme. The Saints have been kind of it's been well overdue. They've been running the age-old Bill Walsh-style systems of the blocking scheme, in my eyes, and they were just old school, old-fashioned, and it has finally not worked, and they have a brand new staff, and I absolutely love it. I mean, my favorite hire, of course, is Clint Kubiak, but I think the one coach that is good that I think will probably be the best hire is John Benton, because recent years this offensive line has just taken a dramatic downturn. I mean, we've gone from seeing offensive lines with Jari Evans, Carl Nix, Jermon Bushrod, Teron Armstead, Zach Strief, and even Ryan Ramczyk, who's he's only 29, approaching 30, but he's got knee issues. So now you're looking at offensive line that's makeshift almost every year. I mean, maybe John Benton and Rick Dennison can get the best out of Trevor Pennon. We don't know. And whatever free agents that they may bring in. So, A-plus hires on paper for Clint Kubiak. I am excited to see how this all works out in September when the Bullets are flying live and both teams on both sides are 0-0. But with that being said, let's talk about potential free agents that I think the Saints could be targeting. You have to look towards the trenches: offensive line, defensive line. That's the two biggest needs for this New Orleans Saints team going into the 2024 season and into the 2024 free agency cycle. You kind of have to look at Robert Hunt, the guard from the Miami Dolphins, former ULL offensive lineman once upon a time. And then you have to look at someone like a Jonah Williams, right tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. He can play left tackle. He's played left tackle before, early on in his career, even in college. I mean, then you look at some of the other names that's on this list, like both sides. You have, like I mentioned, Jonah Williams, Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, guard from the Seahawks, played at LSU. Graham Glasgow, guard, Lions. Maybe La'el Collins might get some interest out there. He hasn't played in a year. You got Dorrance Armstrong, defensive end from the Cowboys. Maybe you give him a starting role and he increases like he's been doing. Then you have Shelby Harris, defensive tackle from the Browns. Now let's look to the second. Let's look to the other offensive side of the ball. You have Irv Smith Jr., tight end. Him and Clint Kubiak was in Minnesota that year together, but Irv Smith Jr. was out for the season due to an injury, but they worked together throughout that whole summer. There's a connection there. Then you have KJ Osborne, wide receiver from the Vikings, who was in Minnesota with Clint Kubiak. You're looking for the connections some kind of way. And also Dalton Risner, guard for the Vikings. Hint, hint. Then, of course, restricted free agent Juwan Jennings is very interesting, you guys. Restricted. This is what the hypothetical for me is. Do the Saints, hypothetically offer Juwan Jennings, say, $2 to $3 million on a 2-year, $3 million deal? I don't think the 49ers will match that, and I think it would kind of be a great signing. He knows the 49ers system. He's very familiar with Clint Kubiak and what he wants to see. And you get a young, up-and-coming receiver that can also block downfield, which the Saints love, blocking receivers. He can catch. You've seen his performance in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the San Francisco 49ers' best player on offense outside of Christian McCaffrey. Or do they go and get crazy and wild and maybe make a trade for Brandon Ayuk? Don't know what that's going to cost, but you have to replace Michael Thomas, either free agency or in the draft that's in April. Now, moving on from the free agents, if you have any questions about free agents, feel free to drop me a line in the comments. Please feel free to do that. Recently, the HBCU Combine just happened not too long ago. There was a lot of players that caught my eye that I added to my board. I was waiting to see little things here and there. I already had Davius Richard, quarterback from North Carolina Central, on my board already, but running a 4.5, 4.6 40 at 225 pounds for a quarterback. He's one of the most prolific and decorated passers in HBCU recent history. Many of you know that he defeated Jackson State a couple years ago in the Celebration Bowl when they were led by Deion Sanders as head coach and Shedeur Sanders as quarterback. He's a dual threat guy. He can make the hard passes. He can run. He can get you those extra yards. He's not the tallest guy. He's like 6'2", 6'3", but he can get you that extra yards on a read option. If you want to do a quarterback sneak, go for it. He can get you 1, 2, 3 yards if you want it. And then, I mean, looking at the other ones, you got Amari Hill Robinson, DB from Bethune-Cookman, incredible speed. 2 running backs, actually. Darius Owens, Texas Southern, and their very own Howard, running back of Alcorn, transfer from Clemson or Syracuse. I can't remember which one it was. Excuse me for that. But Howard really caught my eye to the point where I literally wrote his name down instantly after watching the combine. He just tremendous. Then you go back and look at the tape. Really great running back. And he's going to be an if he doesn't get drafted, would be sad to see, but he would make an incredible undrafted free agent pickup. I will definitely bet my bottom dollar on that. Then you have Cedric Anderson, the cornerback from Grambling. There's not many corners that I can say that I see that are 6'3". In the days in NFL, you need a corner that can kind of match it with taller receivers. And I'm not saying he's an NFL type of corner, but what I seen, I liked. 6'3", type of corner. He can maybe match it with like the 6'4", 6'5" wide receivers. He's got tremendous speed. Ran, looking at it like a 4.6 at the combine. And then, I mean, Latrell Collier, running back from North Carolina Central, Davius Richards' teammate. There's so many great HBCU players out there. And another one, I mean, the Florida A&M players absolutely dominated and destroyed and killed at the combine. They all looked incredible. Shout out to that Florida A&M team. You can absolutely see why they won a Celebration Bowl this year. Well coached by Willie Simmons, who is now the running backs coach over there at Duke. So if you want a great player, draft one of these Florida A&M guys. I mean, Jeremy Musa, the quarterback, he looks like he's going to be an underrated draftee or even an undrafted free agent. It would be very sad to see these guys not go drafted. So, but moving backwards a little bit, back to free agents. And the one, like I mentioned, one position of need is the trenches, but you also got to remember, Demario Davis isn't getting any younger. Demario Davis isn't getting any younger, and you have 2 linebackers out there. One who is a great pass rusher, outside edge rusher. Bryce Huff from the New York Jets. Had 10 sacks this year, had a career year. And many think the Jets are not going to sign him back due to his market value is around $10 million or up from what Spotrac says. I could be wrong. Excuse me for that. Then you got Josh Uche, the linebacker from the New England Patriots, who at the trade deadline, the Saints almost traded for. They tried to get him. He's a young and up-and-comer too. True linebacker, true outside linebacker. Would love to see him next to DeMario. He's a really good downhill tackler, as is Bryce Huff. And another one, if they want to really swing for the fences, I'm not going to butcher his name, but defensive tackle from the Baltimore Ravens, Justin Mabuke. I think I pronounced it right. Justin Mabuke, defensive tackle from the Ravens, would be an incredible signing. So all these free agents and more, you can go read my recent article that I had on their market value, and it's on my recent article on the Sports Etouffee website. I will link that below. Lastly, for this last topic of the show, as you can see, I'm wearing my NASCAR jacket. I have not worn this jacket before. First time I've ever worn this since even having it in my closet for the longest time. But the Daytona 500, the Great American Race, just happened on Monday. Happened on Monday due to a rain out on Sunday. And it was a very fun race to watch all the way to the bitter end. It was not the way you wanted to see a race end, but it happened. There was like 3 big crashes. And you've seen a lot of guys, those super speedways, you're going to see a lot of pack racing. People are going to find their draft partners. They're all going to have strategies, chess not checkers. You're going to see certain manufacturers, all the manufacturers are going to kind of team up and go against everybody. You're going to see the Chevys pitting together. You'll see the Toyotas pitting together, the Fords. And it seems like at all the super speedways, you see the Fords just dominating. Like Joey Logano yesterday, he was dominating almost the entire race. He was the fastest car. And then the second big wreck happened. William Byron was, I guess you could say, the cause of it, the number 24 car. But in the end, William Byron was the winner. In the end, after the big one happened, he came to the caution flag, which happened on the final lap. And 40 years to the day, Rick Hendrick, who William Byron races for, 40 years to the day, and if I'm going to say this correctly, 40 years to the day when Rick Hendrick got his first ever NASCAR win, 1984 Martinsville, Jeff Bodine. Just imagine this. Rick Hendrick's thinking about hanging up, thinking about closing down shop because he couldn't afford to keep it open any longer because the money was running dry. Then one day they said, let Jeff Bodine race Martinsville. He kills it at Martinsville. All of a sudden, Jeff Bodine wins Martinsville. Rick Hendrick gets the money to keep his race shop open, and the rest is history. He tied Richard Petty Enterprises for the most wins at Daytona 500 all time. So congratulations to Rick Hendrick. I'm happy that he's still around, and thank God for Jeff Bodine winning that race in 1984 Martinsville. A living legend and just walking amongst us. Here's to many more for you, Mr. Rick Hendrick. Now, next race that's on tap is Atlanta Motor Speedway. You're probably going to see a lot more pack racing, and it should be fun to watch. You're going to see a lot of draft partners. The draft partner thing, many people don't really like that style of racing, but it's almost kind of fun to watch because then at the end of the stages, you see people trying to move. Then it gets to be 3 wide. That's when it gets fun, but then that's when it gets squirrely at the same time. So Atlanta Motor Speedway should be fun. They fixed the banking. I mean, it's almost as like Daytona now. It used to just kind of be like that. Now it's almost the same identical track banking as the Daytona Speedway. But with that being said, you guys, this has been a fun episode. Talked about a variety of topics. Talked about Saints, Daytona 500, free agency, you name it. Now, if you would like a topic discussed on this show, feel free to leave me a comment. Feel free to message me on Twitter or any social media page that I'm at. You can find me on Twitter or X at the Soulman57. It's the same username on Instagram as well. You can find me on Facebook. Just search my name, Logan Graffia. I will drop the Sports Etouffee website in the description below. I also have a pop-up Printify shop, trying to sell a couple shirts here and there. Just recently designed a new Pelican shirt with a Sir St. Pelicans version called Mr. Crescent City. If you like that, feel free to purchase one. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube show, Sports Etouffee. If you love this show, please be sure to share it. Can't do this without your viewership. So, with that being said, you guys, this has been a wonderful episode of Sports Etouffee. I shall see you guys next time.